are given the linear function g of x, and we're also given the quadratic f of x. Right? The first question, you are supposed to find the distance of AB. Right? We did a question which is more or less like this. So the first thing, find the x coordinates, that is the x-intercept. It's A and it's B. Right? That should not be a problem. All you have to do is solve, okay, the quadratic equation. So we start by saying f of x equals minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 30. Since we have to determine the x-intercepts first, we equate f of x to 0. You get a mark for substituting f of x by 0. You get minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 30. Right? Now, it's always better to have a coefficient of x squared which is positive. So you take the minus 3x squared to the right, it becomes positive 3x squared. The minus 9x becomes positive 9x, and the positive 30 becomes minus 30. Then you must check if there's a common factor, right? Always check if there's a common factor. But if you want here, you can use the quadratic formula. Stop stressing about wanting to factorize. Please use the quadratic formula.
Yes, we don't have to take it over to use the formula to the x.
Yeah, if you want, you can even use the quadratic formula as it is here. If you want, you still get the same answer. But the way that I did there was I want to factorize. If you can't factorize, use the quadratic formula. Okay? Use the quadratic formula. Don't start worrying yourself, how am I going to factorize it? Use the quadratic formula. Right? So here I can take out the common factor, which is 3. Right? Then I'll divide both sides by 3. So my new quadratic equation becomes x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. I could also use the quadratic formula to solve, because the objective here is to get the value of x at a and the value of x at b. How you get it, whether you solve the quadratic equation by factorization or by the quadratic formula, it's more important. Okay? You just want to get the x-intercept. So you have two options. If you feel that you have confidence that you can factorize the trinomial, then go ahead. But if you don't, use the quadratic formula. And it's very easy. So this becomes x plus 5 times x minus 2. So x will be equal to minus 5 or x will be equal to positive 2. Now, common sense should tell you that obviously here, at A, x is going to be minus 5. At B, x is going to be 2. Right? Since we want to find a horizontal distance, you use the formula that I gave you yesterday. AB is equal to x maximum minus x minimum. You will never make a mistake if you use this formula. You will never make a mistake. Your x maximum you know here, it's the 2 minus, this is the minus of the formula. Don't confuse it with this minus. Okay? Minus, then you put the minimum in brackets. Remember, it's a distance. It's a distance. Therefore, the answer has to be positive. You can't get a negative answer. Right? So this becomes 2 plus 5. And that will give you 7. 7 units. Okay? If you show all you're working out like how I've done it, you are guaranteed of your full marks.
So can you use the distance formula?
You can use the distance formula. But the distance formula is a little bit long. It's not necessary to use. But if at that moment is the one which comes into your head, then go ahead. Okay. Then you must go ahead. Right? Okay. Then, has got any question? Is there anybody else got any question?
So where the three go?
Huh?
Where the three go?
What is what?
Three, when you raise it to
The coefficient of x squared is a 3 here. Coefficient of x is a 9. The constant
so
term
the next
is
is
straight.
The next,
when three disappears.
Yeah, because if you divide both sides by 3,
Or divide,
if you divide by 3 here, you don't have to show that step. But you need to be aware that once you take out the common factor, you can divide. Remember, this is 110 now because of factorization. I hope you know this. Once you factorize here, this step here, it means you've got 110 on the left because of the factorization. Right? So you can divide by that 3 both sides, divide on the right by 3, you end up coming to this point. Okay? Now, boys and girls, the quadratic function is extremely important for you to know. You have to know. Because it's going to be there in your final paper. Always comes. So there's no way you can run away from it. And you should not get scared because the moment you see the question paper, you see a quadratic, then your heartbeat increases. No, there's no need for it. Okay? There's no need for that. Know your basics. Right. So we have found the coordinates of the x coordinates of A, coordinates of B. Now we can carry on now. Determine the coordinates of K. Now K is a point of intersection of the two functions. Right? Now, by now you should know this. It should be something which is in your blood. If two functions intersect, you equate them. So you should not get scared because you saw first they determine the coordinates of K. You should be smiling. Yeah, you should be smiling. So, for this question, I'll start by writing f of x is equal to g of x. You get a mark for equating f of x to g of x. So, this will be minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 30 is equal to minus 12x plus 12. Then, obviously, here you need to create a quadratic equation. That's obvious. So this becomes minus 3x squared minus 9x. Take the minus 12, and it becomes positive 12x plus 30 minus 12 equal to 0. And then you get minus 3x squared plus 3x plus 18 equal to 0. Right? If you don't want to stress yourself with factorization, from here you can use the quadratic formula. Okay? You can use the quadratic formula from there. In my case, I'm going to factorize. There's a common factor which is negative 3. I'm going to make the coefficient of x squared positive. So this becomes minus x, and that becomes minus 6 equal to 0. Then, as I did in the previous question, you divide both sides by negative 3. And then you will get x squared minus x minus 6 equal to 0. And then when you factorize, you get x minus 3 times x plus 2 equal to 0. And this will give you x equal to 3 or x equal to negative 2. But since point K is in the fourth quadrant, the value of x has to be positive. Okay? So you reject this one here. You have to indicate that you are rejecting the minus 2. Or sometimes it can be allocated a mark for rejecting that. Then you say, therefore, x will be equal to 3. Right? But here it says the coordinates. Alright? Which means you also need the y value here. So we have to substitute that x equal to 3. Now I suggest you substitute the linear. It's much easier than to substitute into the quadratic. But either of the two will give you the same answer if you do your calculation properly. But it's much better to substitute this 3 here into the linear. So if I do that, just allow me to do it here. So g of 3 is going to be equal to minus 12 times 3 plus 12. This will give me minus 36 plus 12. So I'll get minus 24. Right? Then you can write a final answer. Say therefore, at k, x is 3, y is negative 24. Right? And then you're done. Okay. No. I finished the paper with you words yesterday. No, I'm not doing paper 2 yet. Paper 2 I'll carry on in the next coming days. Right? I need to make sure that your paper 1 is strengthened. Because that's the one which will make most of you pass. Okay. Paper 1 is the one which will make you pass. So that needs to be strengthened even more. Alright? Okay. So this is where we are. Is there anybody who has got any question? What I have done here is very common when you're answering questions like this. Okay, if you practice a lot of the quadratic functions, you are going to encounter questions where you need to know what I just did, just applied. No need to be scared because you saw the graph. No. Alright? Alright. The next question, determine the values of x for which f of x minus g of x is less than or equal to 0. Now this is a higher order problem. Right? But it's not like it's very difficult. If you've got the right attitude, you should be able to answer this question. Alright, first thing, you need to know what this means. Right? And you need to also know that it can also be simplified to another way, which I will show you now. Right? F of x minus g of x means the y values of the quadratic minus the y values of the linear, they will give you a negative answer. If you do a subtraction for the same x value. So if you substitute an x value there, you substitute the same x value into the quadratic. You do a subtraction of f of x minus g of x, you get a negative answer. But this is slightly more complex. So the examiner here, I would say they trick the learners by writing like this. There's an easier format. Do you agree with me that I can rewrite this? F of x minus g of x is less than or equal to 0. I can write this as f of x is less than or equal to g of x. If I take the minus g of x to the right hand side of the inequality sign. Now it becomes better now. If you can work with it like this, okay? Like the second format, this one here is much easier than the first one. But you have to know that the two are the same. Okay? You have to know that the two are the same. Now, I'm sure at this stage you should know that if f of x is less than or equal to g of x, it means that the graph of g of x is going to be above the graph of f of x. Or you can say the graph of f of x is below the graph of g of x. So you just need to identify that interval where the linear is above the quadratic. That's all. So if you look at the graph here, right? If you look at it carefully, now you must check the critical point. The critical points are the x-intercept, right? Point of intersection, y-intercept, y-intercept, and the point of intersection. Those are your critical points to be able to answer this question. Right? Now, if we start from the left, okay, our critical point is going to be this one here, this point of intersection. Right? I'm sure you can see that the linear is going up. So from this point, going to the right, to the left, like that, the linear is above the what? The quadratic. Right? Then to the right, the quadratic is above the linear. Okay? Until they intersect here. Then from this point, going that way, the linear is now above the what? the quadratic. So which means another answer is going to be from that point. So we need to know that x value. The good thing is we found it, right? Also, we found the x value here. The one that we rejected for the coordinates of k, that's the x value here, which was negative what? 2. And here, we got, you see that x equals negative 2, x equals 3, right? Here x is equal to 3. So, getting the coordinates of k, right, or rather getting the x values at the point of intersection is going to be very important for you to be able to answer 6.3, because there is a connection, right? Now, let's carry on. So our answer, I'm sure you can agree with me that all the values to the left of this point here, they are less than -2, but there is an equal sign. So we have to include that -2. So our solution here is going to be x is less than or equal to -2. That's the first solution. The second one is going to be from this point going to the right, but x is 3 there. So x is going to be greater than or equal to 3. Are you following? I'm not guessing the answer. I'm not guessing the answer. And it's not very difficult. Okay, now let me just do a quick check to prove to you that okay, at least one of my answers is right. Right? Let's test the second one, if it's correct. We choose any value which is greater than 3. I want Christine to choose. Huh? 5. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to do a quick check. Right, let me use green. So we're going to do a quick check to prove that that interval is correct. So what we'll do is, in f of x, right, we said f of x is less than or equal to g of x. Let's substitute that 5 into both functions, right? So we are going to end up having -3 times 5 squared minus 9 times 5, right, plus 30. This should be less than or equal to minus 12 times 5, right, plus 12. So let's simplify this. This will give me 25, so I'll get minus 75 there, minus 45 plus 30, right? That should give me minus 60 plus 12. So here, I'll get minus 75 minus 45, that's minus 120. Minus 120 plus 30, I'll get minus 90. Can you verify that for me, please? It's correct, right? Then on the right, minus 6 plus 12 will be minus 42. Do you agree with me that minus 90 is less than minus 48? So when you're answering a question like this, always remember that your answer can be tested if it's right or wrong. So don't just write the answer and then think it's right. You can test if it's right. And you should not be scared because you saw f of x minus g of x, or f of x is greater than g of x. You should not be scared.
I want to explain how it works.
Which one? Okay, the question here says, determine the value of x, for which, right, I simplify, for which f of x is less than or equal to g of x, which means for which the graph of f is below the graph of g, which means the linear is above the quadratic, right? So you must use the critical points. Each of the points of intersection are critical points. So if you look at this critical point here, if we extend that straight line going up that way, I'm sure you can agree with me that the linear is going to be above the what? The quadratic to the left of this point. Do you see that? Right? Also here, as we come, as you go down, right? The quadratic is above the linear. We don't want that. We want the linear to be above the what? The quadratic. That's what this means. It means The linear is above the what? The quadratic. Do you get that? Right? It's only that for this exam, I think some learners, I'm saying this from experience, that because some learners saw this, it confused them. They will probably, a lot of learners may not have been able to answer this question. So they were not aware that it's also the same as this. Because like that, it's a little bit more complex. Right? So that's how it is. Then the next question says, determine the maximum length of CD for x between -2 to 3. Now this question has got some calculus in it. Okay? Remember what I told you yesterday? Some questions on functions and graphs, they require knowledge of calculus. Because calculus is about finding gradients of functions. Yes?
And then, you know the question for the function, like,
Yeah.
we're going to use the second denominator.
For this question here, well, if you want to use that, you can. But that's can complicate things because we are dealing with a quadratic function.
It's going to use the method.
Right. So, okay, I'll show you how I would suggest that you do it. You see, it says determine the length of CD. CD is this vertical length, right? Now, I can write an expression for the length of CD in terms of x. Point C is along the quadratic. Do you agree with that the y value there is greater than the y value at B? You agree with me there? So in actual fact, this question is asking about distance, right? But we just need to know what is the maximum distance. The word maximum here is a clue that calculus is involved in the question, right? It means you have to find the derivative, solve for what? For x, then you substitute that x value into the expression for distance. So allow me to do it on the next page. Okay, let me duplicate this. I think I duplicated it. Right? Okay. Let me just erase some of the things that I wrote here. Because I need space. Oh, this could be a problem. Yeah, that's good. Let me redo it again. I'm just hoping that it will work. It doesn't mean I have to do it on limited. I wanted to read what you are seeing in the graph. Not supposed to do it. Okay, so we're good to go now. Right. So, if I want to find the length of CD, remember, CD is a vertical distance. So, point C, the y value, it's a quadratic, it's equal to f of x. Point D, the y value, is equal to g of x. Remember, f of x is y, g of x is what? Y. So this is also the same as saying y max minus y minimum. I'm sure you can agree with me that the y value for the quadratic is greater than the y value for the linear. Right? Then, since we don't have specific values for f of x and g of x, we just equate their right hand sides. Right? So that we can get CD power 2 minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 30 minus 12x plus 12. Right? Okay, let's get the expression now for CD. It's going to be minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 12x. That will give me minus 3x. Okay, please, I'm just adding or subtracting the like terms. Then 30 minus 12, that will give me positive 18. So this expression here, it is the expression for the length CD. Okay? And I want to find the maximum length of CD. Because of this word maximum here, it means I have to apply calculus.
So why is it positive at the end?
Okay. You see, we've got minus 9x there. Wait, okay, it's positive here. Positive. Sorry, it's positive. Yeah, it's positive. Right. Thank you for that observation. All right. So let's find the derivative. Now, the derivative is going to be dCd over dx. Right? This is going to be equal to, if I find the derivative there, it's going to be minus 6x plus 3. Okay? It's following that. Then we equate that derivative to 0. So if we equate to 0, we get minus 6x plus 3 equal to 0. This will give me minus 6x equal to negative 3. Then if you divide here, right, if you do your division, right, if you divide, you get minus, you get what? X equal to a half.
Minus, yeah.
It's not like minus, see where it was minus 6x and the minus 3 there. So eventually our answer has to be positive.
But when you take the
Okay. Okay, sure. We have got minus 6x equal to minus 3. If you divide by minus 6 both sides, the final answer is going to be positive a half. Right? Now, do you agree with me that a half is within this interval? It's between minus 2 and 3. This restriction here, it tells you that when you solve for x, okay, for you to get the maximum length of CD, your x value has to be between minus 2 and 3. That's what it means. And check where minus 2 is. Minus 2 is here, and 3 is there. So to get the maximum distance, x must be between minus 2 and what? And 3. I'm sure you can agree, it makes sense because if we do a subtraction here, f of x minus g of x is 0 here. Can you concentrate this? Here, both functions have the same y bar. Therefore, f of x minus g of x will be 0. Also here, f of x minus g of x, this is the point of intersection, going to be what? Going to be 0. Okay? So it makes sense. Once you find that x value, which gives you a maximum length, you go back now to this expression. You have to go back to this expression now. Then you substitute x equal to what? A half. So, if you substitute x equal to half, so we get CD is going to be equal to minus 3 times a half squared plus 3 times a half plus 18. Right? You simplify this for what is there. Remember, your length must be positive. You get 75. Can you give me as a decimal? 30, 75. Huh? 18. Okay. 18. So 18,75 units. You write it as a common factor in time. So this will be the maximum length of CD. Following that, yeah, you have to be ready for a question like this as well. Total of 5 there. Okay. Is anybody else got any questions? Okay, if you don't get the question, then let's move on to the next one. The next question, it's an exponential function. So this is part of inverse function, right? It's part of inverse function. Well, before I answer this question here, I just want you to be aware that for any exponential function, if the base, right, if the base is between 0 and 1, there's an increasing function, right? So this function here is increasing. You should know that. So 5.1, I need to find the value of y when x is minus 2. So this is very simple. F of x is equal to a quarter, the power of x. So f minus 2 is going to be a quarter, the power of minus 2. Right? Then you can use your calculator there. But I'm not going to use the calculator. It will be f minus 2. Since the base is a fraction, the exponent is negative, I can swap the numerator and denominator for the base. I'll get 4 over 1. Then I'll convert the exponent to the positive 2. So the answer there is going to be 16. Yeah. Right? You can use the calculator if you can't do it without a calculator. Right? Are you following? Right, then number 2 says write down the equation of the inverse in the form 1. Now this is very important. You cannot come to your maths paper 1 on the 5th of November without knowing how to find the inverse using the procedure that I taught you. So I'm going to repeat that here. So our function, this is now 5.2. Our function is f of x equal to a quarter to the power of x. And I can tell you this from experience of doing maths up to the university level, even until now. Your first maths paper is very, very important to boost your confidence. If you're writing 2 papers, your first paper is very, very important. Okay? If it doesn't go well in paper 1, you are at high risk of panicking in the second paper. And as you know, your paper 2 has got some challenging topics, so there's no guarantee. All right. So write down the equation of that. First thing, you're going to find the inverse. Convert the function notation f of x to y. That's the first thing. Okay? So you convert the f of x, or if there's g of x, you convert it to what? To y. Then you interchange x and y. So if you interchange x and y, you get x equal to a quarter to the power of y. Are you following that? This is very easy. I don't understand why people, even in the trial, could not find the inverse of that logarithmic function. Then, I told you this when I first taught you this topic. The inverse of an exponential function is what? The inverse of a logarithmic function is what? You have to know that. Right? So, the base of the exponential is the base of the logarithm. Okay? So, what this means is this x here is going to become an exponent. Our base is going to be a quarter. This y here drops down so that you end up having y equal to the logarithm to base of a quarter of what? Of x. You can even write the answer without doing this or working out. If you understood the concept.
So you still go bracket one before.
Huh? No, don't put brackets. It's 2 marks here, but you see here it says write what? Write down. So you can just write the answer and get full marks if your answer is correct without any working out. But if you forgot, then go back to the basics. And I can assure you that in your trial paper, either you have a question on the inverse, on the exponential or logarithmic, or it might have a quadratic, no linear. Generally, the linear, they don't test it. So inverse functions you have to know. You can't come to the paper without knowing the concept of inverse. You can't. And some of the questions on inverse functions are very, very easy. You can even write them whilst your eyes are closed. All right. Okay, then the next question, 5.3 now. It says, Andrew has no idea how to draw the graph of the inverse. Right? Explain to Andrew how he may use the graph of f to draw the graph of the inverse. Okay. So here, it's not like you have to write an equation, it's just a description that you have to provide. In words, it's 1 mark, so it's fine if you can lose that one, but it's an easy mark that you can get. Right? So we need to explain to Andrew how he will use the graph of f, which is this, to get the graph of its inverse. Now what you need to know is that the graph of f, okay, is a mirror image of the graph of its inverse about the line y equal to x. And then you're done if you do that. It's an open question. Okay? It's an open question. Let me write it here. 5.3. The graph of f minus 1 is an image of the graph of f about the line y equals to x. Right? If you want to add more spices to the question, you can even say that f is a decreasing function. Okay? F is a decreasing function, and in fact, okay, look here. There are mirror images about the line y equals x. Now, for x spices, as I said, you can even provide more information. Right? But let's say if I want to sketch the tree function, just to give you a visual of how they should look like. Right? Be aware that if you sketch them, f will look like this. They will both have a y, they are going to be decreasing function both of them. So f will look like this. Okay? So this will be f. Then g, or rather the inverse, it will look like this. Okay? Then once you can add that line y equals x. So this is the line y equals x. So they are like that. And here, x is 1. Here, y is 1. Right? So the blue one, this will be f of minus 1 of x. That's it. Okay, if you want, you can provide further information and say f has got a y-intercept, but no x-intercept. The y-intercept is y equal to 1. The inverse has got an x-intercept, but no y-intercept. You can even mention the asymptote if you want, but because it's 1 mark, I think that would be the best way to cover everything. But please, it's an open question. Okay, you can also answer it using other properties in terms of the relationship between the two. But your properties must be here. Okay? Right.